This is Pat with Pat's 2 cents. This is one of my personal stories. An encounter I had with a demon of suicide, seeing the invisible. I want you to hear this story so you will know the kind of things that are happening nowadays in these latter days that we're in. Demons are turning up the flames on everyone. And many of you may be feeling sudden surges of depression, anger, rage, depression, suicide. Understand it is a demonic attack because demons come to steal, kill, and destroy according to the characteristic of their mainline boss, the devil. Listen to this story of the demon of suicide showing up in my living room. There are times when your eyes are given the ability to see the invisible so that you can do the impossible, even when you don't know what you're doing or why. This was a day I will never forget. It was about 5:30 in the morning. I hadn't gone to bed yet. I was still a night owl. I was sitting in the living room when I felt an evil, eerie presence entering my house. It seemed to intensify as it filled the room with its threatening atmosphere. I grew so frightened. I didn't know what this thing had planned on doing to me. After all, I had only been walking with the Lord for less than 2 months. How was I to ward off this evil? I was just a beginner. This beginner was scared. I started to pray. I was so afraid I cried. The tears just kept streaming down my face. I asked God to protect me and let no harm come to me or any of the members of my family. This may sound weird to you, but I knew exactly where that creature was standing because I could see it, though it was invisible. I looked at the doorway that was leading from the hall into the living room. Somehow I knew where to look. I saw him. He was standing there, leaning his head in past the doorway. He was peeping at me out of the corners of his eyes with an evil grin. He looked real menacing. His facial expression seemed to say, "I bet you'd like to know what I'm getting ready to do." I began praying in warp speed. "I command you to leave in the name of Jesus." I repeated, "I command you to leave in the name of Jesus." Then I got more specific. I yelled, "I rebuke you. Leave this room. Leave this house now. Leave this property. Leave this street and never return in Jesus' name." I noticed the feeling of its presence had abated, but I was not taking any chances. I couldn't see it anymore, but somehow I knew that it hadn't finished what it had come to do. I continued to pray, "Lord, please don't let it come back. Please don't let it go after anybody else in my family." Then I felt the need to pray more for each family member. I decided to pray for their supernatural protection one by one, by name. When I got to my sister, it was like getting a wheel stuck in a muddy hole. I couldn't break free from praying for her. When I started praying for my parents, then my brothers, just as if a rubber band was pulling on me, I would snap back to praying for my sister once again. Then this happened several times. You see, my sister was going through a divorce after some 28 years of marriage, and that was making her act kind of crazy. I started praying that she wouldn't hurt her husband or hurt herself. The more I prayed for her, the more concern I felt. "Lord, don't let her do anything crazy. You know how much she's hurting. Please help her. Please protect her from doing herself any harm. Don't let her do anything dumb. please, Lord. I continued to plead and plead for her protection until it felt like I was done, and the entity, was gone for good. Then, after several persistent yawns, I went on to bed and fell fast asleep. It's morning now, but it still looks so dark outside, like it's the middle of the night, where it's between 12 and 4 a.m., and the phone is ringing. Who could that be at this time of night? It's my nephew, with a tear in his voice, pleading with me to come over right now.
It's Mama. She tried to commit suicide.
Next thing I knew, I was at the entranceway of my sister's house, which was full of police officers. I felt such dread. Is my sister all right? Is she still alive? What did she do? Oh no, where is she? I don't hear her voice. The officers were rushing ahead of me without a sound. Nobody was talking. I thought, would somebody please tell me something? I followed the officers into her kitchen, afraid to look at what I might find. I hesitantly looked toward the direction where she usually sat. Then I mustered up the nerve to peep into the kitchen slowly, and suddenly, you won't believe what happened next. I was in my bed. That's right, it was only a dream. I was so glad and relieved until I thought to myself, that dream could be a warning. I immediately sprang out of the bed, grabbed the phone, and called her to see if she was all right. When she answered the phone, I was again relieved just to hear her beautiful voice. Are you okay? I'm fine, she replies. I quickly ended the conversation and went back to sleep. I woke up the second time, and I called again. Are you okay? Reply, I'm fine. I said, okay, goodbye. I quickly hung up. I called her the third time a little later. Are you sure you're okay? She says with an impatience, okay, who told you? Who told me what? She snaps, I thought you were supposed to be the truthful Christian. Thou shalt not lie, remember? Now tell me who told you. Okay. Can I tell you what happened and why I really called you? Well, I began to tell her the run of events, starting with the unsolicited visitation from that demon-like creature that showed up in my living room at 5:30 in the morning. I then described the dream about my nephew with the desperate call about her trying to commit suicide. Suddenly, I realized that all the time I was talking, there had not been one response, not even a sound. I said, hello? Are you still there? Are you still on the phone? Hello? Hello? Hello, what's wrong? Girl, are you all right? I started hearing soft, whispering cries and quivering sighs. Oh, Patty. Oh, Patty. After gaining some composure, she tearfully explained, I was having my morning coffee. You know how I do before everything gets started. It was after 5 a.m., more like 5:30. I was sitting there, crying uncontrollably, saying to myself, I can't do this anymore. It hurts too much. Then out of nowhere, I heard an audible voice speaking plainly with a matter-of-fact kind of tone, saying, You don't have to. You can just end it. Patty, I felt as if that voice had given me the perfect solution, so I immediately agreed with it. At that very instant, all of my emotions switched off. In a split second, I felt no pain. I felt no love whatsoever. Finally, I had no desire to live. I started thinking of a tidy way to carry out my demise. I looked all around the house for a hose to fit over the pilot, but couldn't find one. I decided I'd try to come up with another painless plan. Then suddenly, It felt as if a battering ram had just struck me in the gut. All of my emotions just pounced back into my chest with such vehement force. It was crazy, Pat. It was scary. What happened next was even more frightening. I had a vision of my kids finding me dead in the kitchen and freaking out. I couldn't go through with it. Just knowing how damaging that would have been, I knew that would have messed them up for the rest of their lives. I just couldn't do that to them. While she concluded, I mentally recapped all that had taken place according to the timeline. I thought of the proposal to her of attempting suicide and my sighting of the invisible demon, both happening at the exact same moment in time, 5:30 a.m. Then I understood that the dream with my nephew's frantic call was only an explanation of what might have taken place if God hadn't made that demon show himself. You can't fight what you can't see. You have to see the enemy in order to annihilate him. God made me see him. To think that God opened my eyes to see the invisible so that I could wrestle with and eliminate the threat to my sister's life while I didn't even know what I was doing or why. I realized God was at work that whole time. Then I said to her, "You may not want to hear this, but God saved your life." As a side note, please be very careful not to come into agreement with any demon, especially the demons of suicide. They are running rampant during the Christmas holidays. Be careful. This was written from my first book entitled That Still Blows My Mind by Patricia Love. It's available on Amazon. And now, here's another great idea for a Christmas gift. It can encourage, it can evangelize, and it might win a soul. Introducing Dare to Unfold End Times Prophecy by Dr. Patricia Love. It's available on Amazon. Based on my doctoral thesis, I wrote this commentary on the book of Revelation. It is a dramatized, cinematic approach so that you can visualize it in your mind's eye, making it a much easier, understandable read for the book of Revelation that most people avoid like the plague because they're afraid it won't make sense. But this will.